All right, so let's list out what we're given. Theta increases 8 radians per minute. So how would we label that? Good. D theta dt, is it positive or negative? Positive, because it says increasing. It's a multiple choice question. I'm not going to worry about units. All right. At what rate is x increasing? So what's our question mark value? Yes, dx dt is our question mark value when x is 12 units. So you're pausing at that moment. So let's go ahead and get a relationship between the variables. I heard a lot of you saying it will be sine because we have opposite and hypotenuse. Walking around, though, a lot of you didn't have an equal sign. So let's fix that. You need an equal sign. I don't know where the breakdown happened there, but sine of theta equals. Now you can write x over 13, but my recommendation is write 1/13 x. I just find it goes better if I do that. I've just learned that over the years. All right, now, this is the only step that is calculus. Do your derivative. What's your derivative of sine? Good. Cosine theta d theta dt equals derivative of 1/13 x is 1/13 dx dt. Now we're going to plug stuff in. I don't have cosine of theta, so we'll come back to that. Just leave it blank. What's d theta dt? 8. Good. Equals 1/13, and then dx dt is what we're trying to find. All right, so cosine theta is what we're missing. If you are missing something, you go back to this original relationship, plug in what you have, and look for what you don't. They said x was 12. It's one of the Locker combination ones. What is the other side going to be if this is 13 and that's 12? It's 5. It's 5, 12, 13. So cosine is what over what in your SOHCAHTOA? No. Adjacent over hypotenuse, which would be 5 over 13. The 13s are going to cancel. 8 times 5 is 40. So your answer is 40. All right, we'll do 7 too, and then I'll pause it again. All right, so using this equation, find the derivative. Okay, here we go. Derivative of y, dy dx. Derivative of cosine is what? Negative sine. So the negatives cancel. It's going to be plus sine of y dy dx. Good. Equals, and then derivative of 3x plus 2 is just 3. Now you have 2 dy dx's. When there's 2 of them, we're going to factor it out. So GCF. So, and this is a little bit tricky. What's left when you factor that out? Good, there's a 1 there. 1 plus sine of y. Anything divided by itself gives you 1. And then what's your last step to get dy dx by itself? Yeah, divide, good. And that is your answer. I honestly think the hardest part of that was remembering to put that 1 there. That's tricky. All right, now this is right an equation. Usually you need a point and a slope, but this one's kind of a special case. We want a vertical tangent line. What is the slope of a vertical line? You have to remember back from Algebra 1. Undefined. A vertical line means undefined. The way you get undefined is when the denominator is what? 0. Good. Did everyone stick with me as I talked you through that? You're not allowed to divide by 0. That's how you get an undefined. So it's when the denominator is 0. So what you're going to do is set this denominator equal to 0. So 1 plus sine y equals 0. Now this is a pre-calculus question. Welcome back to pre-calc. You have to solve that. So what would you do to both sides? Yeah, subtract 1. And now we're trying to think about our unit circle. Envision your unit circle. You need a place, and I'm looking for a word like up, down, left, right, where sine is -1. Yeah. Down, that's at the bottom. How much rotation is that? Yep, 3 pi over 2. Good, we got there so far. Now, all you're going to do is take that 3 pi over 2 and plug it back in for y in the original problem. You're going to take that and plug it back into the original. Are you with me here still? Okay. So it's going to be 3 pi over 2 minus cosine of 3 pi over 2, which you don't have to evaluate, but as an extension question, what is the cosine of 3 pi over 2? It is 0, but you don't have to evaluate it. It's free response. So you're allowed to just leave that alone. All right, equals 3x plus 2. No, it was plus 2, right? And then all you are going to do is solve for x. A vertical line, the way I teach it in Algebra 1 is HOI VUX. That's like the acronym that I use for that. Did your teacher teach you that? HOI VUX, horizontal, vertical. Anyway, vertical is x equals, so you need the x by itself. So what would you do to start getting x by itself here? You subtract the 2. So I subtracted the 2 to the other side and then divide it all by 3. And I don't care if it looks a mess. That's not your problem. That's the person grading your paper's problem, which will be me. That's my problem, okay? You need it to be x equals, just leave it alone. Let me recap everything we did there. Vertical line means an undefined slope. That means your denominator equals 0. I'll even tell you how the points work out. You get a point for setting that equal to 0. Then we solved it. You get a point for finding this value. And then you plug that back into the original problem and it's a point for your answer. So it'll be 3. Cool? All right, what is C asking for? What does that mean? Good, because I sometimes get people that say derivative squared. No one has said that yet this year, so I'm going to stop asking you guys. All right, so we're going to look back here and do our second derivative. What rule are we going to need since it's a fraction? Quotient. All right, how does quotient rule start? The bottom. Denominator times derivative of the numerator. Derivative of 3 is nothing. I wrote too big for the other problem, and I'm going to run into this, so I'm upset, right? Minus what comes next. Yeah, so 3. Derivative of the denominator. 1 is a constant, so that's gone. Derivative of sine of y. It's cosine y. Okay, now don't write dy dx. It's cosine y dy dx. What is dy dx? 3 over 1 plus sine y. If you're like, hey, that feels really repetitive, good, it is. It 100% is. Let me recap that. Denominator, derivative of the numerator, that part was easy. Minus numerator, derivative of the denominator is cosine y dy dx. But you don't write dy dx, you write what that equals. All right, and then it's that whole thing over what? Denominator squared. And since it is free response, what are you, bless you, what are you going to do to that? Absolutely nothing. Please, if anyone messes with that, I'm going to be really upset. Please just leave it alone. It'll honestly be easier for me to grade if you leave it like that, because I can follow all those steps. Please just leave it alone. I'm sorry mine got like sideways. I wrote too big in the part B. I am going to pause and let you guys try these next couple by yourselves, but real quick, do you see how that says r prime of t? How do we usually say that though? If it's a rate of change for a radius, how do we write it? That's dr dt. So when you need to plug in dr dt, that's where you go to the table. Same thing in this one. They wrote r prime, but it means dr dt. So that's what those tables of values are given. So they give you your volume formula for a sphere. It's a spherical balloon that's expanding. Oh, thank you. Yes. They will not usually give you circle formulas though, because those ones are pretty basic. So like for a cone or a sphere, they'll usually do that. I still think they're good to know. That's why I gave you that little formula sheet. All right, let's make our list of information. It says the radius is 10 centimeters. So that's like the moment that we're talking about. At time 3. That means that's what we're looking at. Time 3, this one right here. Find, this is our question mark, rate of change of the volume. So dv dt is our question mark. It should be positive because it says the balloon is expanding. At time 3 seconds. So at time 3 seconds, what is our dr dt? 3.5. All right, let's get our derivative. dv dt equals, now you would do a power rule. When you bring the 3 down, what's going to happen? Yeah, they cancel. So it's 4 pi r squared dr dt. And then you are going to plug in all your stuff. So 4 pi 10 squared times 3.5. Please do nothing to that. Now it does say indicate units of measure. You got to be really careful because it's a volume. This says centimeters per second, but because it's volume, it's going to be centimeters cubed per second. Cool. That's it. What if we do what? All right, a cone is shrinking. Table gives the values for rate of change of the radius. That's dr dt. The height is decreasing at a rate of 3 inches per minute. So -3 for dh dt. At time 2 minutes, so that's going to be this part of our table, the radius is 20 and the height is 15. So I'm just making a list of all of my stuff. Find, so this is our question mark, the rate of change of the volume. So dv dt is our question mark. I kind of ran out of space at the bottom of my list there. All right, they give you the volume formula. What rule are we going to need for this one? Product rule. The first thing is the 1/3 pi r squared. The second thing is the height. All right, so it's going to be the first thing. And then what? Yeah, good. So dh dt plus the second thing, which is h. Derivative of the first, that would be 2/3 pi r dr dt. And I forgot to say this on the last one, but I can't change the volume formula for a sphere and the volume formula for a cone. You know how I usually take the test and I change a few things to make your review? I can't change those because they're formulas. So on your test, this is the derivative. Like that's the answer. Do you know what I'm saying? I can't change it. That it like what it is here is what it's going to be on your test. I do not have the ability to change the formula for a volume of a cone. I can't make that be different. Okay, so like that's the answer. Now we're going to plug stuff in. So dv dt equals 1/3 pi. Do we have r? There's a 20. So I think we have everything here, don't we? 20 squared. dh dt is -3. Height is 15. 2/3 pi times 20. And then dr dt is -7. Does it say to indicate units of measure? So don't put them. You want to be as lazy as possible. If they don't ask, you don't do it. So like in this one, we had to, it said indicate units of measure. In this one, don't, because if you put them and they are not right, then sometimes they won't give you the points for that. And that answer would come out negative because this term is going to be negative and then this term is also going to be negative. So like the overall answer will end up being negative. Okay. The particle moves on this hyperbola. Y is 3, dy dt is 7. How is x changing? Just as a heads up, we are going to need x as well. So if y is 3, what is x? 4. Well, how come? How did you get that? Yeah, xy equals 12. So if y is 3 times 4 is 12. Are we all together there? That's kind of basic. All right. What rule are you going to need for the derivative? Product rule. X times y. So it is the first thing, derivative of the second, dy dt, plus the second thing, derivative of the first, equals not 12. 0. Good. And then I think we have everything and we're just going to plug it all in. What's x? 4. dy dt 7. Y is 3. dx dt is what we're looking for. And this one's multiple choice, so you have to keep going until the bitter end. 7 times 4 would be 28. We're going to subtract that over, so it'll be negative 28, and then what? Yep, divide it by 3. That doesn't reduce, so you would just leave it. Cool, that page wasn't bad. I like that page. All right, one more and then we'll have the calculator one. So we'll all get out our computer in a minute here. All right, a cylinder is being stretched. R is 5, H is 9. You know what? I'm still going to make my little list off to the side. If you're like, nah, I don't want to, that's fine because you can see it there, but I'm going to make my little list. Radius is decreasing at a rate of. So how would I label that? Radius is decreasing. Good, dr dt, and it will be negative. Good, perfect. You guys are very good at interpreting the problems and listing out the information, which is like, half the battle. Height is increasing, so I'm going to label that dh dt is 2 feet per hour. How is the volume changing at this time? So dv dt is our question mark. Again, they're going to give you the formula. I can't change it. So when we do this derivative on your test, that's the answer. I can't change it. So like, I can't make the formula be different. Again, what rule is this going to be? Product rule. Because you have 2 different variables. So dv dt equals what? Pi r squared dh dt plus the second thing, which is h. Good. And then derivative of the first, you bring the 2 down. So 2 pi r dr dt. Just turned that out. That's the answer on your test. I can't change it. And then I think we have everything. It looks like a really long list, so I think we've got everything. We're just going to plug it all in. So R is 5. Hold on. Was this a free response one? You know what? This is not a free response one. So we are going to have to simplify this. You can't just leave your answer and walk away. So I actually am going to do some simplifying. R is 5. 5 squared is 25. So I'm going to go ahead and write that as 25 pi. Sorry. Write and talk at the same time. All right. dH dt is 2. Height is 9. R again is 5. So 5 times 2 is 10. This will be 10 pi. Now this is negative 0.2. I would rather write that as a fraction. That would be negative 2/10, which would be negative 1/5. Okay. And we're going to have to keep going here because it's multiple choice. You have to keep going until you can figure out which one is your answer. All right, so this first part would be 50 pi. I would multiply these first. 10 times negative 1/5. That'd be negative 2 times 9. So negative 18 pi. And so what is that, 32 pi? Did I do that right? Yeah. Cool. You have to keep going if it's multiple choice. You can't just stop here because your answer choices are not going to look like that. All right, these ones are going to be calculator. So if you want to go ahead and pull up Desmos. All right, a circle is expanding. So think of like a drop in a pool and like you have a ripple that's expanding, all right? Radius is increasing 5.5 inches per second. So that's dr dt is positive 5.5. How is the area changing? So dA dt is your question mark. Should it be positive or negative? Positive, good. That's just so you can check your answer. When the radius is 12 inches. Now you may notice they did not give you a formula for this one. They won't for circles because circles are a little bit more basic and they expect you to know those ones. So what is your area formula for a circle? Pi r squared. Yeah, they expect you to know that. They'll give you like a sphere and a cone, sometimes a cylinder, but that one you need to know. All right, so dA dt equals 2 pi r dr dt. Again, that's the answer. I can't change a formula. And now we're gonna plug everything in. I think we have it all. This wasn't actually too hard of a problem. 2 pi r is 12. dr dt is 5.5. When you type that in, type everything except the pi. Or if you can do it without a calculator, you can do that too. But type everything except for the pi. And let me know what you get. $132. I was working it in my head. Yeah, that's what I got. Okay, 132 pi. All right, last one. A vase has circular cross sections, just so you can envision this. You know what like a vase or a vase looks like that you put flowers in? You know how they're like round? You know how if you like chopped cross sections of it, they'd all be circles? Well, like you have an imagination, right? Imagining this. All right. Each cross section, 8 inches above the base, has a radius of this thing. They are not going to give you a nice function. It is going to be nasty and ugly. Okay, so just accept that and then calm down and go, okay, I got a calculator. Water is getting poured into the vase when the height is 8 inches. So height is 8. The height is increasing. So dh dt is 1.2 inches per second. What is the rate of change of the circumference? So how would I write my question mark value? dc dt is your question mark value. Now you actually can't figure out if that's positive or negative. You have no way of knowing because a vase could start out wide and then get skinnier. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, and you don't know how it's like, so we don't know if it's positive or negative. We're going to just have to trust our answer. Okay. That's all we got. All right. We need a formula for circumference. Is 2 pi r. Good. They're not going to give you that one either. Circumference of a circle, they expect you to know that. Derivative. So dc dt, derivative of 2 pi r would be 2 pi dr dt. Good. dc dt is what we're looking for. So we're going to leave that alone. 2 pi. Now here's where it gets weird. Because up until now, I feel like everything in this problem was pretty straightforward. We need dr dt. We have r, but it is not in terms of time. See how this is r and this is t? R is actually in terms of h. So what we're going to have to do is r prime of h, which they gave us. What is h? 8. And then you have to chain on what? Because it was in terms of h. dh dt, which is 1.2. Again, if you make your list of information, you will probably catch that because you'll be like, hey, where does this 1.2 go? Like that should fit in there somewhere. But let me say it again. We need a dr dt. We can do dr dh, like we can do r prime in terms of h, and they gave us h, it was 8, but then you have to chain on dh dt. Are we all together? Okay, cool. That's what we want to put in our calculator. So I'm going to share my screen. What you want to put in this first box is r of h. Just please take a minute. Don't rush anybody because some people are faster than others. Type that equation literally exactly as it looks. And if you want to do f of x and type f instead of r and x instead of h, that's fine too. Up to your personal preference. And just please be very slow in your typing and careful because with calculator stuff, and I won't conceal from you, I dislike calculator problems for this reason. If you type one thing wrong, you can know exactly what you're doing and then the whole thing is wrong. And they don't give you nice functions. They give you stuff that looks like this. All right, somebody double check me. I think I typed something wrong because I have 2 equal signs there. That's not right. This one should be a plus. There we go. Is that confirmation? I don't want to do it wrong in front of everybody. I think we're good now. All right, so come down to the next box, and now we want to put our answer. 2 pi r prime of 8 times 1.2. And that is your answer. How many decimal points do you need? 3. So 4.840. Does it ask for units? No. And it will be very clear. They will say indicate units of measure. If they don't say that, don't put them.